Yo, how's it going? All right, this is bit of a retread of what I went on maybe last year, but it's a very I consider it important because it's another key to this aspect of non-dualistic type of dialogue and understanding what it kind of means or what it composes of. And yeah, it's not as complex as you would think, but there is a level of complexity that will then get into a simplicity, like everything. So bear with me. Again, this kind of comes true and again, channeled. Going through multiple topics, but we're going to get a conclusion. So that's, the biggest caveat I can tell you. And I have no idea how much time is going to be spent down there. So this kind of goes fisticuffs with the channeling. Still, what I mean by collective poop by the title is that there are certain ideas, wordings, definitions that are divisive by nature, that are putting you in one camp or another, instead of understanding that there are no camps. What do I mean by that? There are no camps. Okay, well, always coming back with that example. There are no evil babies. Okay? Baby ain't gonna come out of the womb with an evil grin or an evil look. It will never judge you. It will never hate from the get-go. Okay? Because it doesn't have words which have definitions which then have stances and based on emotional reactions. Ooh, I don't like that. Okay. Ooh, I like that. There's no words, so there's no concept of good, bad, right, wrong. There's what's preferred and what is not preferred. But again, that is outside of concepts and ideas with definitions. Okay? This is crucial to understand, because if you don't necessarily get that, then you're kind of assuming that you were born with the English language or the French language or any other language, instead of naturally picking it up from your early environment. That would also be like saying, as a baby you were able to walk from the get-go. No, you weren't born with that. You picked it up from the exterior, just like walking, just like various other practices, physical practices. So you can't separate that. And you really want to be fully conscious of that. This is like key for you and everyone on this planet, okay? We ain't gonna jump into other planets, not yet, okay? But that's something else. But for this species, we are not born with words, language, concept, definitions. Thus, we don't necessarily have any emotional stances on that peripheral. The early emotional stances that we have is what's preferred and what's not. What is looking friendly and what is looking scary. But even that does not have word. It is an instinctual reaction, okay? This is the base premise. Get that, and you've just got one heck of a golden key for what's going to follow up and various other concepts, okay? Because then you get out of the idea of assumption. When you understand that as a baby, blank slate, then you pick shit up from your environment in the time, the year, the social climate that it has. So all that shit could change. That shit could have changed. You're born 1 second later, your whole timeline changes. Okay? A year later, a second later, just a change in one pattern of that life of yours changes that whole data. Except one thing, the you prior to that data. Okay? This has to be established. It's like saying, if you went to a different high school, different best friend, different kind of ideas, different kind of patterns, hey, you would have got a Sega Genesis or maybe a Panasonic 3DO, instead of a Super Nintendo, which would have got you different kind of game range, which would have got you a different kind of preference, which would have got you interested in different kind of movies, because you wouldn't have necessarily went to see the Super Mario movie or Double Dragon or any of that. You would have waited for a Sonic movie or something else, right? Your whole timeline changes. This is important to keep in mind, all right? Now, when I get into the aspect of the collective poop, I'm gonna lower the music a bit, okay? When I get into the aspect of the collective poop, what I mean is every kind of divisive thought, ideas, concepts that is brought by the collective. Now, these concepts, these ideas are replicated in movies, TV shows, cartoons, video games, all that basic shit that you kind of ingest for entertainment. Well, that stuff is, again, everything's a double edge, but that stuff is also like mental McDonald in a sense, all right? Meaning it only brings one side or another. It's always this side or other. You're either good or you're bad. You know, it's framed that way. It is written that way. It's the limitation of the medium. But this very same concept also applies to social media and some of the shit that we're experiencing in media. Meaning, you remember there was a time where gays weren't accepted in society? Oh yeah, that should change. Hey, you remember there was a time where women weren't accepted in church and various other places? Oh yeah, that should change. You remember there was a time where trans weren't accepted and there was a slang word, dyke, and all those other things that were said in a mean way, not in a joking way, but just very viciously said. Okay? Now, that shit changed, but that is still collective poop. You gotta understand, there was a time where people ate that collective poop because they're like, oh, well, everyone's saying it, everyone's seeing it this way, everyone's accepting it this way, so I gotta follow the collective, right? That's like national proclamation. Everyone, poop is breakfast is our national breakfast. You don't necessarily need to follow the trend when you really get this, you know? So there's this little subtle idea now of you being a second-class citizen if you don't necessarily get yourself pricked up with some experimental shit that's been confirmed to have negative stuff in there anyway, and having backfire. But that collective poop doesn't need to be taken or necessarily need to be acknowledged, you know? There's people doom posting going, oh fuck, I feel so bad because I don't get to enjoy this, I don't get to enjoy that because I'm being considered this way because I didn't do that. You know, this, that, because the collective says one thing. And again, you don't need to think and abide by that collective poop. You've seen how it changed throughout history. It didn't even need to be that long time history. This is quite when I talk about the gays and the trans, the LGBT, that's quite recent history. So it won't need 100 or 200 years. It might not even take 5 years. It might just not even take a whole year. It might just be a couple of months so that this current collective poop flushes. So when you get that, when you understand the that concept, okay, that again, you weren't born with those definitions, so you didn't have any emotional reaction to it, and that those concepts change every couple of years because eventually society kind of gets the message. Younger generations are there to show that, you know, the kind of question the collective poop eating, and they kind of go, well, why do you do that? Well, because everyone else does it. And when you get that, it's just a fear of ostracization. You know, you gotta follow the collective poop or else you're gonna be ostracized. But when you kind of get, okay, so I'll be around less people with shit breath, in a sense, you know? But to be a bit more respectful, you're going to be around less people that have ate the mental McDonald. All right? So you're not spreading the mental McDonald. This is something to consider. Whenever, again, as innocent and as non-intentionally harmful as those TV series, those media, those video games, those cartoons are, they still repeat the collective McDonald's type of eating as a mental diet. You know, the simplistic, very bare-bone, basic bitch main character mentality, okay? Which kind of created the Karen, which was always there. So even that terminology, the Karen, just toss it away. It was always there. And it's repeated by the people who ingest that and unconsciously repeat it. So you can't fault them. Again, the blame game has always been stupid when you understand how subtle these things are. But at the same time, now you don't get to eat the McD. You don't fill your mental diet with that McD, so you don't spread it. So you don't force it onto a new generation by saying, everyone's doing it, keep the blindfolds on, so just do it. No, fuck that. You know, you saw the patterns in history, so you don't repeat it. That's it. You know, it's not about remember what happened in history, remember that, remember this. No, you just saw a pattern. Okay, well, let's not repeat this pattern. That's it. Done. Okay? And that's why after a while, when you get this, you don't necessarily get affected by it as well. You don't keep it in your own thought pattern. It's like, okay, here's an example, two examples, because this was brought up in discussion had on Facebook. A friend of mine kind of said, and it really sparked an interest to bring that discussion back. It kind of said that they didn't necessarily feel equal when going into a restaurant with this whole thing, with the whole mask, and not being able to stay in a restaurant. It made them not feel equal. And that brought up that discussion, a revival of that discussion, because this is a very interesting concept to understand and integrate within yourself. Hell, here's another example similar to that. Oh, I can't do this because I'm black. I can't do this. I am not, you know, I just can't because I'm black. And, you know, oh, the cops are hating me because I'm black. I didn't decide to take that mental diet, that mental poop. Other people decided to keep that in mind and at times would just ask, well, don't you feel, don't you feel underprivileged? Don't you feel that? And it's like, because of a skin color? Bitch, if I wasn't born in this time and space, the word wouldn't mean shit. You know what I mean? It's just a word that's been given. It's just a concept that was given. And some people will just get so mentally violent, like, but look at your skin color. Doesn't that mean this, that, boxes, perceptual boxes? And some people will just want to stick you in a box or not. You know, that's not their fault. They've ate that mental diet for such a long time that it's normal. That's why I tell you, watch out. Watch the fuck out with what you ingest in your mind. The kind of dialogue, the kind of thinking, alright? Because if, like my friend, I was thinking myself second-class citizen, or I should feel bad, or I should feel underprivileged, or blah, 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 then I'd feel like shit every day because of what someone else told me to think. Wait. So, you mean to tell me because the collective poop is getting ate, and someone's like, yo, here's have your serving of, have a serving of this, you know, because that's how society works, quote unquote, then me, because I would accept that, would make myself feel bad because my internal dialogue would compose of that exterior poop. Do you understand how sneaky that shit is? Because someone else told me to feel bad from their perception, based on their whatever logic that they want to bring, I should feel bad. Even though I was not born with that kind of logic and definition, so I did not have that emotional attachment until that person told me that. Isn't that reminding you of something that used to be done on our parents and our grandparents? Doesn't that remind you of, hey, if you think like that, this invisible God, which is unconditionally loving on page 1, created all, including you in its image, well, he would hate you. Oh, and now it's a he because immaterial energy, right, is a man for some reason. You see what I mean? They got that programming pill. They didn't necessarily bat an eye about it. They were forced into it, some of them. Okay? And can you see how that fucks with the mind? How that used to fuck with their mind? How some would just have anxiety and depression constantly because they would take that mental poop and then repeat it in their mind. Shit, I can't think about that or else I'm gonna go to hell. Oh my God, this guy, all omnipotent, hates. And it's like, but wait a second, page 1 said unconditional love. What the fuck are you going on about? It's the same concept. Yet it does take a time to just sit, ponder, filter through your mental dialogue just to ask. And let's get into a new golden key, something that kind of came up within the last week, okay? Constant acceptance of that inner dialogue. Even if it has mental poop, never blame yourself and don't blame anyone else. Okay? You understand how subtle it is. So you can't play the blame game. Sorry. That's ancient. The blame game doesn't make sense. It never helps. So ignore it. When you understand that, see, channeling kind of gets interrupted by a dog barking. Oh, my practice. Okay, wait. So, when you get that, you don't necessarily want to let those mental viruses, you kind of filter. Okay, there we go. Pick the trend back up. Fully accept your mental dialogue. Don't blame yourself. Don't blame anyone else. Okay? You got to accept all ideas, everything, all lines, all creation. Okay? All of it. So even if it's something that you don't necessarily like, you have to accept it. Accept that it's there. Yes, notice where you picked it up. Okay? And that becomes a big key. When you start noticing that a lot of shit getting picked up oftentimes comes from television, TV, fiction, media, books, that is also perpetuated by your environment. Because naturally, if a person spends a certain amount of time listening to a certain kind of material, they'll get that certain kind of mindset, and then will speak and talk from that kind of mindset, which includes the words, the sentences, the structure, and thus the emotions being reflected by that material. Okay? So, no blame. Second thing is to be in this habit of continuous question and answer. Okay? You question yourself. Where did I pick that up? How does that make me feel? And then you just go with your first intuition as an answer. Do not discredit your intuition and do not discredit your imagination. That was part of the big fuckery that was placed on the species. There's much more to imagination and intuition. Never underestimate it. That could be a topic for another time, or maybe a little product or material that I might set up in the future. But you can do your own research. You can look at it from multiple angles and have fun diving into that. Yet, for this very particular exercise and golden key, do not underestimate it. Do not throw it away. Do not dismiss it. Everything is there for a reason, okay? And this is where you get much more inquisitive. One, as you're doing this process of back and forth, constant question, answer, accepting everything that comes, while also remaining open for better, for a shift, for a much more conscious understanding of it all. you're gonna see shit's gonna roll on a momentum you will be surprised is delicious. Because you then figure out where you got that mental poop. And then guess what? You flush it. Done. That's it. You don't keep that idea in mind. Because the news medias and the governments are saying, oh, you're a second-class citizen because if you don't follow my rules. No, I don't need to take that. Remember, there used to be a time where, that's a loaded example, but communism in Russia, Nazi Germany. We can go into much more cults? Nah, cults is a bit too specific. It's too restrained. We want to North Korea. Right, there we go. That's tackling on extremes, but you gotta remember that shit has happened. Or, it's another extreme, but maybe a less toned down. Remember segregation? Again, you may still feel those were, humans of the past. They did not have that much brain power. No, it's called manipulation. It's called repetition. It's called propaganda. It's called neurolinguistic programming. It is called hypnosis. It is called brainwashing. All that, same concept. Repetition, repetition, repetition. A standardization of an idea, really basic bitch main character mentality idea of what life is. But hey, buddy, we're dealing with quantum physics, and we're understanding a bit more about neurology, neurolinguistic programming, and all of that. So there's way, way much more to life than this simple flesh and body, okay? And to kind of breach through, to get to the fun part, you really gotta acknowledge what keeps your mind locked into a perceptual box, an idea of who you are, what you are. And often that is dealt with the collective poop. Now, there's not all poop in the collective thinking. It's just that on this particular subject, oftentimes, and most of the time, especially nowadays, we have been a generation that have ate this McD mental poop, and we were coerced to see it as normal out of the fear of ostracization. It's been a pattern that's been repeated in history. But now we're at a point where we see it. So this is basically to give you a key understanding of how it kind of led to it, how it feels, how it kind of works on the subtle cases, and how you tell it to get the fuck out of your mental buffet. Because fuck it. Really? Okay, let me give you one last, maybe one last little incentive for it. Okay. One last incentive. Because some people might just go, I'm not feeling too much about it. I'm not seeing too much of an incentive aside from possibly being happy and not necessarily stabbing myself with my own thoughts that were given to me by other people. Okay. We've got neurology and we've got quantum physics agreeing on the fact that your thoughts have an influence on matter, which includes water, plants, various other matters in reality. The experiments have been made. Water experiment in Japan, Dr. Miyamoto, I think. The rice experiment in China. And we've been talking to plants for a couple of years, so that's been somewhat established. But the dots are connecting, okay? So, even neurology got into that. You can check out the works by Dr. Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo, or Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and if you're not too stuck in the mind, Becoming Supernatural. So, neurology proves it. So, what happens if your mental diet contains collective poop that has you feeling like shit when you bring up that kind of logic? Right! Disease. illnesses. It breaks down your cells. There has been studies confirming that oftentimes people with cancer, when they just get into a full happy state and are in tune with themselves, many times they go through remission. Because there is a link to continuously thinking like shit about yourself and your cells, how your body will break down. Because it's like putting commands. Feel like shit. You are shit. You are nothing. You are shit. The body's like, oh, that's the command? Okay. Literally. It's fucked up when you believe it, right? When you see it, when you act upon it. It's like, wow. And you can even feel it on the subtle level. Your emotions aren't there for nothing. You see, this is where this whole dismissal aspect has been brought with school, the devices, and the fiction. You dismiss your emotions, but they're not there for nothing. They're warning signs, you know? So it's just we're at this point where we're connecting the dots, but have that as an incentive, one big ass incentive. Do you want to be healthy? Of course you want to be fucking healthy. Okay, so stop holding collective poop in your mind that has you actively hating yourself, and you'll be healthy. Don't get the judgmental idea of God, you know? Don't get that latest version of that, which is the social version. Don't get that. Don't take that, because the effect is going to be the same. How's that for an incentive? Now, this is a practice. It will take the time that it takes, okay? Do not force yourself to wipe out all the poop language in your mindset in a day. It takes the time it takes, and like I tell you, that shit is subtle. Don't blame yourself, don't fault yourself, but be open for the possibility that you may be able to change faster than you think, okay? It's very subtle. It's like, you're not forcing yourself to get this in a single moment or a single watch of this video or a single night or a single week. But you're also open to the potentiality that you'll change faster than what you think. So with that very nice tight rope, you're in a very interesting position to learn more about what's going on internally, understand where you got it, and then change it. And over time, it just becomes like a jog. It becomes like jogging. You won't even think about it consciously. You just have to apply the law of repetition from the initial state. So consciously repeating, okay, I spotted that. Where'd that come from? Doing the operation, asking the question, ooh, am I judging myself? Where did I pick that up? Because sometimes it can be in layers. Sometimes you'll pick up the collective poop and then judge yourself for having it. And it's like, whoa, wait. Okay, where did I pick up judgment? All right, parents. Whoops, they didn't know. Didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't have psychology at that time. Or to this degree. And it wasn't widespread. It's not like it was offered in first grade because, you know, children are still considered second-class citizens, apparently. That's another topic. Still, you don't judge. You just kind of go, okay, so let me take off that one layer when it comes to judging myself, and then let me take off the mental poop. Voila, done. Keep doing it, and you'll see. It'll become easy. And after a while, you just kind of laugh at it. Again, it's all about non-duality, in and out. Yes, the collective is going to have their series of thoughts, their ideas of perception box A, perception box B, and blah, 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 blah. But you can also opt out of it. It's back and forth. You don't need to fight against it. Again, everything that you fight brings back the same energy, which then makes you feel like shit. There's no point. There's no fighting. It's about understanding and instructing. Okay? That's why we're canceling out the blame game. That's done. 2021, end of the blame game. Done. Okay? Doing our best on that one. But when you kind of get that and how subtle it is, ain't no blame, and there ain't no forcing. You understand that certain people might have had that repetition enough time that it's anchored. This is what it is. I had met a person that was really anchored, like older gentleman, you know. A guy kind of reminded me a bit of Brian Tracy, but when I saw his mindset, I'm like, oh yeah, you're far out of Brian Tracy's range. You're not even close. But fairly older gentleman, and he was blaming some of the stuff that was happening in the universities on women. And again, in that moment, and that was before I learned about non-duality, I was like, whoa, that's quite judgmental, you misogynist bastard. I didn't say it that way, but I had that running in my mind, and then I understood, wait, repetition, 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 oh, repetition. Plus, they weren't even allowed to talk about their feelings. So I understood what kind of mindset was brought onto that person. Gave that compassion. Never really hung out with that person ever again because we were just meeting up here and there, you know? So it's kind of like that. You live and let live. You get that understanding of how it comes to. You don't assume shit about anyone because you understand how granular and complex one's life is and where they take whatever instance of ideas, definitions, and all that is within their own lifespan. You can't judge that. You know, you can only understand and roughly generalize, okay, well, you might have picked it up from your environment, from your home environment. You might have picked it up from school or even from the media. You know, we can get so many hints when you look at previous shows or previous media type of stats, you know? So, just pause and just live and let live. Take some time. Do that exercise. Don't force yourself. Have fun with it. Play it like a game. And never, ever, 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 ever allow yourself to feel like shit because of someone else's idea of what should be and what shouldn't be. Because you'd be repeating history. Eat the collective poop, right? Because you don't want to feel ostracized. You've got choice. It's just that the game was kind of rigged. So, yes, free will. It's just that the game was rigged with mental programming. But free will is still there. And when you understand it, you're just able to pick and choose. And I tell you, you're going to be in a much better environment as well. Less people with poopy mouth. It's all to play with fun and games, you know. You kind of want to play it fun. But it's true. Once you're out of the environment, you're out of the zone of people with poopy mouths, well then you kind of go, oh, feels great to talk about fun stuff. Feels great to laugh. Feels great to play and create without, you know, poopy mouth judgmentalism. Even on the soft level, you know, it happens. It's subtle. So have fun. If there's any questions, put them down at the bottom. Ooh. Under an hour! That's a record! Channeling's getting easier and easier when there's no dogs in the hallway. Have a good one, guys. Kick some ass and feel free to participate, create a discussion, bring more topics like that, you know? Let's have fun with this.